Hello, and welcome back to another Doctor Who series review, where, as much as I would like to put this one off for as long as possible, I now have to review Series 6 of Doctor Who. Now, until this current rewatch, not my favourite. I thought that Series 6 was the downfall of the start of the downfall for Doctor Who. Series 6 wasn't great, Series 7 wasn't great, Series 8 was okay, Series 9 was good, Series 10 was excellent, and then it plateaued back down again. Anyway, that has since changed, where after I've watched all of these episodes, I don't think it's as bad as I once thought it was. It's not great by any means. The whole premise of the series, with the Doctor being killed off and, you know, it's a fixed point in time and all of that and so on and so forth, is like, it was a big undertaking that in some aspects it hit. Some really good episodes came out from this series, such as The Doctor's Wife, The Girl Who Waited, um, the opening two-part episode. And then you have not great episodes. And the series finale, I still enjoy it, could have been better. So, with that being said, let's start off this review with episode 1, The Impossible Astronaut. Now, I was 13, freshly 13 when this series came out, and I remember waiting for this because, I really love Series 5. Series 5 is my favorite, and I genuinely love Matt Smith, and I was really, really looking forward to this new season. And the first episode, The Impossible Planet, is excellent. It's a great mystery. We see postcards being delivered to Amy, Rory, and River. They travel to America. They meet the Doctor wearing a Stetson, continuing on his love of wearing things from Series 5, with the fez. Now it's a Stetson. And also continuing on from the last episode being, not the last episode, but the series finale of Series 5, where River shoots off his Stetson. And then we get the big thing of this, as the title of the episode is, The Impossible Astronaut coming out of Lake Silencio, the Doctor going down to talk to this thing and getting shot and killed mid-regeneration. And now I know after this fact, with Series 7 and of course the 50th anniversary, this regeneration has sparked a lot of debate in the community since then. How could the Doctor regenerate if he's on his last life? And it's the same thing that's going to come up in Series 7 when he heals River's hand in Angel's Take Manhattan. Now, for this particular one, how can that be explained as well? A spoiler for the end of the series finale. That isn't technically the Doctor; it's the Tessellator, and it's so the Doctor could manipulate it to make it look like it's regenerating. So that's the explanation behind there. But then, of course, they travel back in time to just before the Apollo shuttle goes to the moon, and that's where we also meet Mark Shepard's character of Canton Anton Delaware III. But fun fact as well, whilst it's fresh in my memory here, the actor who plays Old Canton is actually Mark Shepard's father. So I thought that was pretty neat. I didn't know that until I looked it up on IMDb, and turns out that yes, it was Mark Shepard's father. May he rest in peace. So all this stuff happens. Then it ends on a cliffhanger, and that of Amy shooting the astronaut, because the astronaut's there. But it turns out it's a little girl. This is after she says to the Doctor that she's pregnant. that becomes a recurring theme throughout this series as well. Um, and so, yeah, then we get on to episode 2, Day of the Moon. And it's okay. It's not as strong of an episode as The Impossible Astronaut. Yes, it ties up things neatly, with showing how it all happens, I apologize for the jump cut there. My cat just decides to annoy me, as you can hear him there. So yeah, like I said, this episode is just okay as a wrap up from the last episode. It's not as great, but it's still an okay episode. I still found some enjoyment through it, but it starts off good, then it plateaus when Amy and Canton go to the closed down orphanage, and then it continues to plateau down after that. And then of course we have the ending of this girl who we know nothing about is regenerating. And now let's get on to the next episode, being um, The Curse of the Black Spot. Now, this episode I have not returned to since it aired. Um, God, 12 years ago. Jesus Christ, it's been 12 years. Anyway, yeah, so I originally did not like this episode, The Curse of the Black Spot. I genuinely just didn't. It's one that I vaguely remembered, afterwards. It's just one that I haven't been bothered to really return to because I know I didn't like it. But obviously, for this review, I have. And what did I think of it? Well, I don't mind it that much. I think it's actually a decent episode. Yes, it does suffer a from a major thing being that this episode was originally supposed to air in the latter half of Series 6, and not at the beginning, because originally uh, this was supposed to air after we find out who River Song is and all of that. But they had to bring that up, so things got edited and in a ways, and it kind of does affect the episode in a way, but not too drastically. Like I said, it's an okay episode. Comparing it to Legends of the Sea Devils, that is another episode that had to be heavily edited because of changes. Is a far The Curse of the Black Spot far better than that episode. But yeah, I enjoyed it more on this rewatch than I did when it first aired. But now we move on to my absolute favorite episode of this season, and that is The Doctor's Wife, written by Neil Gaiman. And yeah, it still holds up. A lot of people might say that it's overrated, and a lot of people might not like this episode, and that's perfectly fine. But to me, I fell in love with this episode the moment that it aired, and it's still one of my absolute favorite episodes. Now, like I was saying, with the episode changes between the Curse of the Black Spot, this episode was originally supposed to air back in season 5, before there was even a Rory on scene. So this was going to air pretty early on in the first 4 episodes of series 5, or potentially after, with Rory being erased from time. And recently, as of recording this back in May, Neil Gaiman did put out 4 pages of the original beginning to the script, where it's going to be Amy and the Doctor going to see the Beatles in concert, and then that's how he finds the message box, which the way Neil described it in the script is how it was originally looked in the War Games, where it was just 4 blank pieces of paper that melded into a box that was then sent off to Gallifrey and what have you. But despite this episode taking place in Series 6, like I said, my personal favorite episode of this season, and it's amazing. I love the rage that the Doctor gets when he realizes that he's had hope that there's other Time Lords here, and as the TARDIS in Idris's body points out, that the boxes will make you angry. They do make him angry, and he gets very vengeful. And then, of course, House, played by Michael Sheen, takes over the TARDIS. We see more of the interior of the TARDIS. Not just the first console room, which is good because we don't really see that much anymore. Like we saw some of it in um, during the fourth and fifth Doctor's era, from what memory serves me on the episodes that I have seen, like Castor Valva, which is not a good episode, by the way, and Logopolis, and maybe some other episodes as well that, feature going into the TARDIS more. That not just the console room, especially I think in I forget the episode, but where we see the wooden console room from the Fourth Doctor. I think the Hand of Fear. Someone can correct me in the comments below. Anyway, that's all nice to see, and then of course we get to see the 10th, 9th and 10th Doctors TARDIS yet again. They literally had to keep that set for 18 months because the episode got pushed back a season and that. Which I thought was nice. Giving the 10th Doctor's, 9th and 10th Doctor's TARDIS interior another look. See, because we thought it was gone, but it turns out that the TARDIS herself stores that in her memory banks. I would have liked to have seen one of the retro consoles. Maybe the 7th Doctor's TARDIS or the 4th Doctor's TARDIS. One of those would have been nice. But again, like I said, it's nice to see the 9th and 10th Doctor's TARDIS, which we would of course then later see again during the 50th anniversary. But yeah, I genuinely love this episode. I love the line that the Doctor says to House when he says, "Fear me, I've killed thousands of Time Lords," and the Doctor just calmly says, "Fear me, I've killed them all." I thought that's one of Matt Smith's best deliveries. So yeah, like I said, one of my absolute favorite episodes. Moving on to an episode that not a lot of people like, and that is the Rebel Flesh two-parter, the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People. Now, again, when this episode came out, I did not like it, and this is my first time rewatching it since it came out. And yeah, I have some memories of it. Like, I have memories of part one, which I really, really liked. I think I remember liking part one because there was, a solid enough premise. And then part two, when part two was came out, a friend of my mother's came over as the episode was airing, and so those two were talking. I was trying to listen to the episode to see what the fuck was going on. But obviously I couldn't. And so that tainted my viewing of it. But honestly, after this rewatch, I don't mind it. It's okay. It's not as bad as everyone says it is, Like I said, part one has a very interesting premise. The only thing that really bothers me throughout the two-parter is just how Rory acts in this episode. It just feels out of character to me how he acts towards one of the gangers. But yeah, this was important. This was an important episode to, because this is the episode where we also find out that Amy is a Flash avatar herself and hasn't really been there for ages. And it turns out she really is pregnant because throughout the episode, both the ganger doctor and our doctor both tell her to constantly breathe because she's about to pop. And yeah, it's not an episode that I'm going to be returning to unless I do a full series watch through again. But that might not be for a good long time. But now we get on to another favorite episode of mine. A Good Man Goes to War. Now, this episode is fantastic. I really did enjoy it, despite because I think from what I can remember, Moffat tried really, really hard to get pull from not just his two seasons, his first season and what he's filmed so far of this season. He wanted to get stuff from the Russell T Davies seasons and like Captain Jack. Captain Jack was supposed to come back in this story, and it's where he was going to get beheaded and become the face of Bo. But obviously that couldn't happen because whilst they were filming for this, uh, John Barrowman was in America filming Torchwood Miracle Day, which I think Torchwood Miracle Day isn't as bad as people say it is, whereas Children of Earth is as bad as is overrated as people say. Anyway, not going to get into that. I'm sure I'll probably get into that at some point with Ryan over at Let's Get Kicking Movies. Because I'm recording this the day I'm doing the Torchwood Season 1 live stream with him. Anyway, back to the story. It's fantastic. As it says, the Doctor reaches his highest of highs and then suffers his lowest of lows. He gets the highest of highs where he rescues Amy, he takes over without much of a fight in like 3 minutes 42 seconds, and then he rescues Amy, he rescues Melody, and then he gets the lowest of lows when the headless monks show up, and it turns out that the baby is a Flash avatar also, and that they've gotten away with it. Also, one thing that I didn't realize about this story, one of the actors who's in it, I forget her character's name, but I think her actress's name is Christina. She is the one of the characters in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds as Laan Singh. So yeah, I didn't even recognize her when season 1 of Strange New Worlds was airing, and it wasn't until I was messing around with IMDb that I saw the picture of her in one of the press conferences or one of the premieres for Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I was like, hang on a second, how the hell did I not know that the actress who plays Laan Singh was in Doctor Who beforehand? Just goes to show how much I pay attention to that stuff. But yeah, then Doctor Who went on a few month hiatus back in 2011. This was the first time that they've done this. It was the first time that they've done it in modern Who anyway. And the reason behind it is a fucking stupid reason. And it's no one else's fault but Stephen Moffat. It's his fault because he had the vision of, for the opening scene of Let's Kill Hitler, which is the episode that we're on now, that he wanted Amy and Rory and then of course Mel's and the Doctor to meet in a cornfield and have this crop circle doctory type of thing. And they couldn't do that when they were filming the first half of the season because it was winter. So they needed to wait until summer before they could film that episode. And so the series got split into 2 parts. So that's why A Good Man Goes to War, where we find out that River Song is Melody Pond, is the mid-series finale. And then we pick back up with Let's Kill Hitler. And I flip-flop on this episode. I'm not gonna lie, I have flip-flopped on this a few times where initially I liked it. I thought it was a good episode when it first came out, in August of, or in around August of 2011. And then I flipped onto it's not that great, and now I'm flipped into it's okay. Basically, the premise is, turns out Mel's, who is Amy and Rory's best childhood friend, is actually their daughter, who then they name their daughter after their daughter. And they do eventually get to, raise their daughter. It's it's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey is the best way I could describe that. Um, but then, of course, she gets shot by Hitler, who's trying to shoot the tessellator, and she then regenerates into River. And she also poisons the doctor, which again kind of introduces a bit of a continuity issue where the doctor mentions he could regenerate, and they say regeneration is disabled. Yeah. I mean, technically, if you want to be pedantic about it, bringing in the timeless child, the doctor could have regenerated. But I'm under the belief that the Time Lords forced the 13 regeneration limits onto the Doctor. Anyway, yeah, episode is just okay. It's just there to give us the beginning of the River Song timeline, essentially. That's all its purpose really is. And then we get on to Night Terrors, an episode that I did not like when it came out. It was an episode that I just didn't even remember what happened in it. I knew it involved dollhouses. I knew it involved a scared kid. That's all I could remember. And then I watched it, and it's a forgettable episode. Now, this episode was originally supposed to air at the beginning of Series 6, but again, it got swapped with The Curse of the Black Spot. And yeah, it is just forgettable. Absolutely forgettable. There's nothing, there's no real significance that it serves in the plot. Because originally, like I said, originally when this episode was shot, Amy was a Flash avatar at that point, and not and this didn't take place before Let's Kill Hitler, where the Doctor knew and pulled up the time of April 22nd, 2011 at 5:02 p.m. at Lake Silencio. So that scene had to then be edited in because of that. But yeah, Night Terrors, very, very, very forgettable. There's no point me going into it because I've already forgotten it. And yeah, it's definitely going to be an episode that I probably never return to unless I'm doing a full season rewatch again, which even then I might just skip. But we're moving on to a fantastic episode, and that is The Girl Who Waited. I I rewatched that this morning, and holy fuck, does it hold up? It is absolutely amazing from beginning to end. Absolutely amazing. The Doctor brings Amy and Rory to this planet called Apalachia, and the Doctor and Rory go into one room. Amy goes into another, and it turns out that this planet is in quarantine with a sort of plague where you get it and you die in a day, but it only affects species with two hearts, which just so happens to be the Apalachians and the Doctor. So he has to then stay quarantined in the TARDIS. And so they eventually find a future version of Amy that has survived in this place for 36 and a half years. Or 38 years. One of the two. I can't remember which. And originally, she hates the Doctor because she blames him for her being stranded there for 30 odd years, which is perfectly valid. And then they've managed to come up with a way that they might be able to pull Amy of the past into Amy of the present. And again, Amy is against the future Amy is against that. And then it turns out that, they do that eventually because past Amy talks to future Amy. My top lip is just very itchy for some reason. Anyway, so they get back to the TARDIS. One past Amy / modern Amy gets knocked unconscious. Rory brings Amy into the TARDIS, and then the Doctor, realizing how bad this paradox is from the beginning, closes the door. And again, Arthur Darvill brings absolute his best performance in this, because he says one of the coldest lines to the Doctor: "You're making me become you." You know, having to choose between the two Amy's, and it's just a stellar episode. I absolutely love The Girl Who Waited. It is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love it. Now we get onto the God Complex, which is the next episode. And I hated it when it first came out. I think it's okay now. Very overrated. The God Complex is a very, very, very overrated episode, in my opinion. It is just, to me, it's just overrated. I don't find any enjoyment out of the episode, especially not when it aired back in 2011, and especially on my first rewatch since 2011. It's just not my cup of tea. It just isn't. I'm sorry. I don't know how to the best describe why it's not my cup of tea. It just doesn't. It just doesn't do it for me as an episode. You know, based off of their beliefs and who and all that shit. It just, I don't know. I just didn't like it. Um, but then we get onto another episode that I flip flop on, and it's an episode that a lot of people don't like, as well as the finale. But it's closing time, with the return of everyone's most hated person, James Corden, and it's a Cyberman episode that they barely feature in. It's more of the Doctor and Craig show and Stormageddon. But it's still more of a Doctor and the Craig episode, just with the Cybermen there, because why fucking not? We haven't had a Cyberman episode since season 2? Yeah, season 2. I mean, they've made some appearances since series 2, but they haven't had a spotlight episode since series 2. So why not give them one in this episode? And I flip flopped on this. At first, when it first came out, I really liked it. I really did. But then I flopped into I really don't like this episode. And after my rewatch, it's okay, not the best, but also just above the worst. And that's all I can really say on that one. And now, at last, we get to the last episode of this series, The Wedding of River Song, where there's two versions that played out at Lake Silencio. The one where River kills the Doctor, and one where she doesn't, and then all of time happens at once. And like I said, it's an episode that not a lot of people like. And I have, again, it's another episode that I flip-flopped on. When it first came out, I thought it was good. It was a good ending. Didn't necessarily wrap up everything, but it was a good enough episode for me. And then I didn't like it, and now I think it's just okay. Should have been a two-parter. This was the kickoff of seasons that end with just one 45-minute episode to cram everything in, to wrap up the overarching plot in the 45-minute time slot. That shouldn't happen. It happened in this season, it happened in series 7, and then it happened again in series 11. And it shouldn't. You shouldn't rely on just one 45-minute episode to wrap up the season. Had it been split into two parts, part 1 being the Doctor going around, like he was in the beginning of this story, tracking down the more information on the Silence, with the Father Gideon of Vandeleur, and also him going to this live chess tournament, seeing that, as well as, going to get the beheaded Dorian Moldova, and also learning of the Brigadier's passing. That all should have been what was 20 minutes, should have been 45 as a full episode. Have it, expand it more, show us more of that. whilst also intercutting with the explaining, showing more of the frozen time, the broken time period. And then the part two is wrapping up the season, and like I said, instead of it being just condensed into one 45-minute episode. So that's just my take on it. It's an okay episode, and yeah, that's that. So has my opinion now changed during my rewatch of Series 6? Yes. I no longer hate it with a fiery passion as I once did. Yes, it is a massive decline in storytelling. It was Chibnall bit off more than he could chew with this. And he doesn't necessarily resolve everything until Matt Smith's final episode, and even then, I don't think everything gets resolved. But yeah, because like in this episode, in the fractured timeline, Madame Gavaria does die, but then when all that gets reversed, she's still out there. She's still plotting. She could still come back. She's still alive. But yeah, I definitely don't hate it as much as I once did. It's okay. A lot of the episodes in here that I hated, I now don't mind. Like I said, the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People. That's an episode that I hated, and I didn't mind it. Now, as I said, this was a season that I was not looking forward to starting because of how I felt about it. But now that it's done, I don't mind it that much. However, that does mean now I am not really looking forward to going into Series 7, because Series 7 is much more of a mess than this. And to find out why I say it's much more of a mess than this, you're going to have to wait until next month. Yep. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you all next time.